Okay, so during the last demonstration, we have learned how to create the SQL databases. Now, in this particular demonstration, we are going to learn how to connect to this database. And to do so, there are certain things which has to be taken care of. As I have been saying that the connectivity to this database happens through the SQL server. Let's go ahead and look for the servers. Come in the More Service section, look for SQL servers. Let's click on that, and that will take us to the server which is holding this database. Clicking on this SQL server will prompt us to all the property section of it. Coming to the property, the one important property to look at is the firewall setting. Now by default, Microsoft Azure is a passive in nature, wherein it will not allow anybody to access this database. If somebody has to be given access to this, that guy has to be specifically added to this firewall section. Now for this demonstration, we're going to use my client ID to get connected, and I'm going to create a rule so that this client can access this database. And to create the rule, let's provide the name of it. Let's give it the starting IP, which is my client IP. Let me just go ahead and save this. Once it has saved successfully, you can click on the OK, and then we can go ahead and look at our SQL Server Management Studio, and then we will see how we can connect that. Now before going there, we have to capture the server details, predominantly or specifically the endpoints, because we know the username and password which we have associated. To do so, let's go ahead and look for the properties section. That is where we'll see the endpoints associated with the SQL server. Let's copy the server name. Now here we are on the SQL Server Management Studio. Let's provide the server name which we have just copied. Go for the SQL Server authentication. Provide the login credential which we have given while creating this SQL server. Let's provide the proper password, and hopefully it should allow me to connect to this server. Now by successfully providing the username and password along with the endpoints, we have been able to connect to this database. Expanding the databases, we can see the database which we have created, and because while creating we chosen the sample database at AdventureWorks, looking at the tables will let us see all the tables which is related to AdventureWorks. If we want to test the performance or the queries which can be fired against these tables, let's go ahead and click on the new query. Let's type a command to select all the things from customer table. Let's go ahead and execute this query, and hopefully it should yield the results which was expected. Here we can see all the records from the sales.lt.customer table. So under this demonstration, we saw how we can connect to this newly created SQL server with the help of SQL Server Management Studio. The one thing which has to be taken into consideration is the firewall setting. If you want anybody to access to that database, you have to specifically go and assign the IP of that endpoint so that endpoint can access this database. By default, Azure blocks any access to this database.